And good morning. I'm your host, Michael Rathburn, here with the DFS Minute for Friday, April 17th, 2015. Fridays are a big day in daily fantasy baseball, so we want to get you prepared early on. Grab your coffee, grab your breakfast item, and let's get a pen and paper and get some notes in real quick, get some strategy in, and then also we got Benny and Josh coming up at 12 noon to 1 p.m. Eastern with the curve, where they're going to break down the hitters for the day, the pitchers for the day, the things that they're looking at, how to build a lineup, and then they're going to hit you with those strategy sessions. The things that we pride ourselves here on at rotocurve.com is that we're bringing you strategy sessions and teaching points so that you can become a better player in daily fantasy baseball. First thing I'm going to hit on today is contest selection, and I talked about it yesterday, and I got so much positive feedback about it that I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of a breakdown today of what I think you should do. One of the things I'm noticing really quick, and I talked about it the other day, is these contests that are very attractive for new players are filling up quick. What I mean is the single entry, larger field 50-50s. These contests are filling, and they're filling fast. What I suggest that you do is early in the morning, you hit up FanDuel, you hit up DraftKings, build what's called a placeholder lineup, which means you click on create a lineup or create a contest on FanDuel, create a lineup on DraftKings, click up on players that are going in the late games, and make sure it's a late slate. You can pick from the slate. Just make sure you have the right one. It's very easy to get the wrong one. Just make sure you have the game starting at 7:05. And put in a dummy lineup, pick a bunch of guys that you're not going to use. That's okay. It's just what we call a placeholder. It's holding the spot. And enter the contest. Now, what you want to look at on 50-50s for single entry only, okay? Make sure it doesn't have that M in a box, or it says single entry, or it doesn't say multi-entry in the contest description. Okay, so on DraftKings, it's going to say multi-entry in the contest description typically, or it's going to have an M next to the entries in the contest lobby. Look at the 1, the 3, and the $5 50-50 single entry. You better get in them quick because they're filling up fast. And now on the 1s and the 3s, I think they do reload those in the lobby, so you might be able to get in some of those. But typically, they're not reloading on the bigger fields. So jump in the $1, which is 300 entries, the $3, which is 200 entries, and the $5, which is 150 entries. Those are the contests that you want to jump in as a new player. Also, if you just started playing on DraftKings, you are allowed to play beginner contests until you play 50 contests, I believe. So on the lobby, they have a tab. It says beginner. Max your beginner entries first. That's the first thing you want to do. Max out your beginner contest first. Play in 50-50s and beginner contests, and play in single entry tournaments in the beginner contest. Okay, max those first 50 out, and then hopefully you have a positive bankroll, and then you can start shifting over and playing some of these single entry contests that we talked about. Again, I can't stress it enough. Stay away from multiple entry right now as a new player. And we'll break down why you want to do that, but really and truly, it kind of evens out the field, and you want to make sure that you're basically going one lineup against another person's lineup, and you're not having to deal with somebody who's stacking 20 lineups in a tournament. It's not a positive experience as a new player to see you being in the money, and then all of a sudden somebody with 20 entries passes you because they hit a home run, and then all of a sudden you finish out of the money. So it's frustrating for new players. Again, the reason I say that is that's what I hear. I hear constantly the frustrations of new players. So what we're trying to do is have you avoid some of those frustrations, have fun playing daily fantasy baseball, and enjoy it. And then, of course, we want you to have a win at the end of the day, and so you can have fun doing it as well. All right, single entry 50-50, single entry tournament. Not many of them over on FanDuel. How you find single entry tournaments on FanDuel is you click on the tournament tab in the lobby, and then after the contest description, there's a G and an M. G is guaranteed, and M is multiple entry. Look for the contests that only have a G. They'll stand out real quick in the lobby because there'll be a little bit of a white space gap. There's not many of them over there, but there are some in the 1, the 2, and the $5. You may have 1 or 2 per day. Again, we've told you before not to play tons of tournaments to begin with. We only want to be 10 to 20% max of your contest entries, of your bankroll each day in tournaments. So if you're going to play a tournament, might as well make it single entry, and you might as well make it where you actually have a chance to cash. Do not jump in these tournaments with 50,000, 100,000 people with multiple entry. It's not going to be a positive experience for you. Your chances of hitting are going to be very low. Okay, we want you to start off with a bang. We want you to win, and we want you to build positive lineups. We want you to have success, and then we want you to move on and play a little bit of tournaments and dip your toe, have some success in some smaller field single entry tournaments. And then as you grow your bankroll, you can start venturing out and playing some more multiple entry contests. But for right now, we're strictly staying with single entry, 50-50, single entry tournaments. And then you can also play heads up contests as well. But we're asking that you just, stay in that low threshold, the 1, the 2, and the 5, depending on your bankroll. That's how you want to start off playing in DFS baseball. Look, again, we talked about this the other day. Look at the early only slate on DraftKings. It looks like there are a lot of contests up today. Build that placeholder lineup. Take that placeholder lineup and export it over into those early onlys, because what will happen is there's probably going to be overlay, which means the contest is going to still run, but it's going to be short of the maximum entries, so you're getting good value on your money. We talked about it yesterday with the qualifiers. It's going to happen again today. They have a lot of qualifiers up. If you want to take a shot at a $5 qualifier to win a ticket in a $27 or a $33 entry, I'd suggest that you go ahead and do it. Also, there's some single entry tournaments or possibly some single entry 50-50s in that early only slate. There's a chance to possibly that those contests don't fill, or that they're not going to have the competition in it that the late ones are going to have, because people aren't really paying attention to it. So softer competition and overlay in early only on DraftKings is your opportunity to really try to benefit and get ahead of the curve, as we say here at RotoCurve. Price changes. Been talking about it for a few days. I think it's important. Only a handful on FanDuel. I'm going to run over a few. Matt Joyce up $700. Nelson Cruz up $500, which is to be expected. Jose Bautista up $400, and Justin Upton up $400. So just be aware of those guys. Those prices have increased. And as I said the other day, and it's a little bit frustrating, no price decreases really on any of the hitters. Chris Coughlin was really the only guy that went down to $300. Possibility his playing time is going to get cut anyway. So, and he's playing, I believe, in the early only, so he's not even really in play today. So, again, what does that mean for me as a DFS player? If player hitters' salaries are going up and the guys who are slumping are not going down, well, it makes it tougher to build a lineup, and it means you got to find value plays even harder. And it also means that you may not be able to take the ace that you want to take if the price is too high. You may want to dip down into that 3rd or 4th tier pitcher in your cash games. But I would not advise that today. I think you just have to find a way to get the guys like Kershaw and Scherzer, because they're such heavy favorites, and that the majority of the public is going to be on them. So for your cash games, which we classify as heads ups and 50-50s, I would also possibly throw in there, if you play any of those 3-man contests, you're probably looking at something like that too. I think a cash game is typically something that pays out 50%, but I also think that you could probably open that up a little bit and say something like a 3-man league that, where it's only 3 guys, so you're going to run the same lineup out there. But 3-man leagues are kind of interesting, and something that I know a lot of guys love, and some people don't even really look at. But 3-man leagues are something that, if you want to take a look at, just take a look at who's in them, because unfortunately what happens is a lot of the sharks will just pound the 3-man games and be in every single one, so you can't avoid them. So, my advice is to just look at any 3-man game that's already got 2 people in. And then hopefully, if you look at the people who are in, it's not a name that you recognize, and that you go ahead and play some of those. So, but for right now, I think we want to just stay with the 50-50s and the single entry tournaments. We can talk about playing a little bit heads up, but again, I'm only recommending that you go like really small 1s and 2s, for early on. Let's try to focus on a certain segment of contest selection first as a beginner. Prices on DraftKings, it's not really based on performance so much. It's based on matchup. It's based on the opposing pitcher and the ballpark. It looks like today that we have increases on the Nationals, the Red Sox, and the Braves. Looks like those are the lineups that have gone up. And it looks like that the Angels, White Sox, and Rockies have come down. Not sure why the Angels would have come down. They are going against Houston. against Roberto Hernandez. So there may be an opportunity there to take advantage of some Angel prices that may have come down erroneously. White Sox are going against David Price, so understand that. And the Rockies are going against Clayton Kershaw, so you can understand that as well. On the Red Sox side, understandable. They're going against Ubaldo Jimenez, so those prices have been juiced. But I still think that you can probably find a way to get some of those guys in. The last thing I'm going to touch on today is some basic research that you can do without taking a ton of time. Let's say you don't have a lot of time throughout the day. You got 15 minutes in the morning, or you got 15 minutes when you come home, etc. Okay. What you can do is just give you something that I do real quick is on my phone, I have the Sports Insights app. And what that is, it gives you all the odds for Vegas. It's a great app. You just click on the sport, you click on the date, and it gives you the basically what they give you is a weighted average of what the lines are. You can click on each individual game, and it will give you 3 or 4 sports books, and it'll give you the line of each 3 or 4 sports books. But typically what I'm doing is I'm looking at that main one that they give you, which is more the aggregate, and I'm scanning down the games real quick. I got a pen and paper in hand, and I'm looking at what are the highest run totals of the day. So that's typically going to be a number between 6 and 10. So I'm looking at anything that's in the 9 or 10 range, or even 8, 8.5. Now today we have a couple of games in 9. We have the Angels and Astros at 9, and we have the Orioles and Red Sox at 9. And the thing about these games and why they're attractive is that there's no aces going in these games. So the favorites aren't that heavy of a favorite. You've got Joe Kelly going against Ubaldo Jimenez, and you've got Jeff Weaver going against Roberto Hernandez. So what that tells me is that these 4 teams are in play today because they have the highest expected run totals, according to Vegas. So we don't really have any aces. Jeff Weaver's not an ace anymore. I'm sorry for the guys out there that still think he is. He's not. Okay, he's very vulnerable to left-handed bats, but he's also extremely vulnerable to right-handed bats as well. He's just not the same pitcher. Doesn't have the same velocity. So he is a guy that you can pick on. Roberto Hernandez, not a very good pitcher. Jimenez did have a good outing, but he's a guy that can either be boom or bust. And going against this strong Red Sox lineup in Fenway Park, am I going to put my money on Ubaldo today? No. So I'm going to look at some of the bats. So the first thing I'm going to look at is, okay, all these pitchers are right-handed. So I'm going to first skew towards left-handed bats, because left-handed hitters are going to hit better against right-handed pitchers than they do against lefties because of the angle of the arm and the way that the ball comes in. So who are the guys right away that stand out for me? I'm thinking about big boppers. Okay, who are the big boppers that I know hit left-handed on these lineups? Okay, well, the Angels really don't have any big boppers that hit lefty at this point. Josh Hamilton is out of play. When I go to Houston, they really don't have anybody they're so right-handed heavy. But one of the guys I do want to think about is Jose Altuve. He's a guy that I'm going to mark down as somebody who is a possible must-play today, depending on the landscape of second base. I typically don't like to spend at second base. That's usually where I find some value, because I'm looking at a guy who's bumped up in the order for a splits differential advantage. So what that means is I'm looking for a right-handed bat going against a left-handed pitcher. I'm looking for a left-handed bat going against a right-handed pitcher of a guy that's minimum salary, right, $2,000 to $3,000 on FanDuel, or $3,000 to $4,000 on DraftKings at second base. That's just the strategy that I have. I'm always looking to punt at second. I'm probably looking to punt at shortstop. I know I'm going to find at least one value guy in the outfield. I want to load up at first, third, and I want to get a couple guys at outfield, and I want to load up on my pitchers. That's a strategy that I have. That's typically a cash game strategy that I'm going to employ. Again, everybody has a different strategy. That's the one that I'm telling you that I do. If that's the one you want to pick up, that's great. If not, you want to stick with what you're doing, that's fine too. But again, I'm just telling you what I look at in a quick vacuum every day. When we move over to the Orioles and the Red Sox, the first guys I'm thinking about, left-handed bats in the middle or the top of the lineup, I'm looking at Chris Davis, I'm looking at David Ortiz, and I'm looking at Daniel Nava. If Daniel Nava typically is going to play against righties, and he usually hits sixth, there's an opportunity that maybe he gets. Sometimes they do bump him up, but with Mookie and with Dustin Pedroia hitting 1-2 at this point, they're probably not going to do that unless they give those guys a day off, which I doubt they're going to do today against Ubaldo Jimenez. So those are some quick things that, I'm going to focus on Ortiz. I'm going to focus on Davis. Now, they both play at first base, so it's just a matter of where the salaries land. But then I'm also looking at Nava as a possibility in the outfield. I'm looking at Travis Snyder as a possibility in the outfield. So I'm not so much looking at Orioles too much. I think, Joe Kelly is okay. He's not super great, but, he's okay. I'm more focused on Red Sox. And then also that Houston Angels game could be very interesting. So probably want some action in that one. The other game that I'm looking at, and this is where you can't just blindly go on Vegas totals, okay? Because a good pitcher could be on the road going against a bad pitcher, and that's going to skew the line. So the game that sticks out for me is Cleveland, Minnesota. Kluber going against Pelfrey. Mike Pelfrey is one of the worst pitchers in baseball. He's right there in that class with Erasmo Ramirez, guys like that, where they just go out there and they just suck. I mean, bottom line is Mike Pelfrey stinks. He shouldn't even be in a major league rotation. The only reason he's in the Twins rotation is because they have a lot of injuries and don't have any depth and have no arms in the minor league system. So, I love picking on Mike Pelfrey. I always have that pick on list. So I'm definitely going to be looking at the left-handed bats for Cleveland. I'm not worried about that 7.5 total. To me, the 7.5 total is being driven by the fact that Corey Kluber is pitching. So I want to look at the fact I don't think Minnesota is probably not going to score today. Cleveland could put up a bunch of runs. So I'm definitely looking at, Carlos Santana. I'm looking at Jason Kipnis. And I'm also looking at Brandon Moss. Brandon Moss would probably be one of the tournament plays that I'm going to look at today. Huge fly ball pitcher. So that's definitely a guy you want in a tournament because the upside possibility of hitting a couple of home runs is there. He's not a guy that you really want to put in cash games too much, only because he could strike out quite a bit and he doesn't really make contact. So if you're looking at, let's say I'd probably go with David Ortiz at first base in cash games because he can also draw walks, but also he's got the ability to drive in runs as well. But Brandon Moss is a guy, because of the high strikeout factor, I'm probably going to look at tournaments because in tournaments you're really trying to go boom or bust more of guys like that. So some of the other guys that I'm looking at is on the pitching side. I think we definitely have some options today. The two big guys are Scherzer going against Philadelphia. Scherzer's minus 240 with a 7 total. He's at home. And then Kershaw is minus 240 as well. 6.5 total, a little bit better, but he's going against the Rockies. There's going to be a lot of guys that it's going to be split in this camp. I'm going Scherzer today. He faces a weaker Phillies lineup. And the Colorado lineup, even though it's outside of Coors and they mash in Coors, it's still got guys that can hit. Kershaw has been a little shaky here the first couple of outings, so that's not to say that he can't get right today. But I think if I'm going to pick between the two right now, I'm going to go Scherzer. Now, a lot of this can change based on lineups. If lineups come out and the Phillies sit some guys or the Rockies sit some guys for whatever reason, maybe Cargo sits today, maybe a guy like Blackman sits today, that's going to weaken the Rockies lineup. So if the Rockies roll a weak lineup out there today, that would be enough for me to probably shift over and go Kershaw. So really that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at lineups today and seeing whether or not any of these teams are sitting their big guy. Now for Philly, I don't see that really happening all that much because they have mostly their guys are on the left-hand side, so it really won't make a difference. And the lineup isn't very good to begin with anyway, so it won't really make a difference. Some of the other guys I think you can look at, Michael Wacha is a guy I'm going to be looking at in tournaments and as a second pitcher. Or if I go with, let's say I drop down and I go with a couple of like number 3, number 4 guys on the board today, Wacha is probably going to be a guy I'm looking at. He's at home, he's favored, and the total is low. It's only 6.5. Wacha has the upside for Ks, and while the game should be close because he's going against Johnny Cueto, I do like the Cardinals at home here. I like the number. I like the spot. I wouldn't be surprised if that number moves up a little bit. I know Cueto is an ace, and the total is really low, and minus 125 is still, that's about where the number probably should be, but it wouldn't shock me if there's a little bit of action on the Cardinals and this number goes to 130, 135. I think only because there's good value in Wacha at home, and I do like the Cardinals. I don't think I know the Reds I think the Reds are a little bit overrated right now. I know you got Hamilton and Votto at the top of the lineup, but I think that Wacha could be able to hold these guys in check today. So I do like Wacha as a tournament or on a second pitcher site. David Price is also going to be out there going against the Sorry, it looks like Tampa Bay. Sorry about that. Um, that would be a situation where you can look at J.A. Happ going against Texas. He's at home, and then you've got Jake Peavy, who's a minus 130 favorite, 7 total. So I think Price, Happ, and Peavy are all in play, probably more for tournament or second pitcher site, mainly because you're going to be so top heavy today with Scherzer and Kershaw. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this morning. Again, check out Benny and Josh at 12 noon to 1 Eastern today with The Curve, where they break down all of today's action. And then I'm going to be back here later on today with the DFS Minute PM edition. Going to try to get it out by 6 o'clock and get you with a quick 5-minute video. But again, the thing is, I'm waiting until lineups come in. I want to make sure that we have the whole entire landscape covered. So if I do drop a video at 6, just know that some of those West Coast lineups are probably not going to be something I'm going to be able to cover. And there's always 1 or 2 wrinkles in some of those West Coast lineups. So just be aware of that. So anyway, this is Rath signing off for this morning. I want to wish everybody a great day, and we'll see you back here later on at 12 noon Eastern, right here on the Roto Curve. And as we always say here, stay classy, DFS.